You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.
And now, it's time for the show that breaks down the options market from unusual activity alerts to market analysis, strategy overviews, listener questions, and much more. If it involves puts and calls, then our all-star panel will break it down. It's time to hit the Option Block with your host, Mark Longo from the Options Insider Media Group and co-hosts Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, Mark the Greasy Meatball Sebastian from OptionPit.com, Andrew the Rock Lobster, Joe Benazzi from OptionPit.com, and Henry the Flowmaster Schwartz from Cboe. The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle. And now, get ready to hit the Option Block.
All right, everybody, that music means we are back. It is Thursday, time for episode 2 of your bi-weekly options extravaganza, known around the globe as the Option Block. My name, of course, Mark Longo from theoptionsinsider.com, as well as from the network upon which all of you folks are binging out there. Remember, wherever you're listening to this, make sure you subscribe to the full network, wherever you get your fave podcasts. And, of course, if you want to have a lot of fun, including get your name in the hat before the end of the month, for the October Pro Trading Crate, join our folks in the chat. I like that. Let's boo this. I may have ripped that off earlier already out there in the chat. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go on this day before Halloween. Halloween Eve. A lot of fun out here. Mischief Night, as it is known in some places. Let's see what kind of mischief we can get up to here on the Option Block today as we go around the horn. You know, when you say mischief, only one name comes to mind, and that is the uncleest of Mikes, Mr. Uncle Mike Tosaw from St. Charles Wealth Management, a man known for just being a wellspring of all things mischief in the mecca of mischief itself, St. Charles. Mr. Uncle Mike, welcome back to the show, sir.
Oh, man, with that introduction, I got to come up with something for today's show because I am quite the mischievous one, and I got to live up to it now.
Yes. How go your mischievous doings, sir?
Well, we'll talk about that in the trading block.
Ooh, should be fun out there. What's the Halloween scene, really quickly? What's the Halloween scene like in St. Charles? Is it just crazy? Are the decorations everywhere, or is it kind of laid back?
It's neighborhood by neighborhood. Just depends on where you're at. This year, I'm hoping that it's going to be totally dead because everyone's going to be going to the first round playoff game as the boys from Unity Township High School of East Moline are coming to town, and hopefully we can give them a disappointing Halloween.
Oh yeah, you guys have business, don't you, tomorrow night? Yeah, I forgot about that. My son's team has a bye this week, so it's kind of nice. So we get to do the old not trick or treating, but we get to turn some of downtown Chicago into a fun little Halloween wonderland for an evening. Or people bring their kids from the suburbs to take pictures in front of my setup. It's all kinds of fun. Maybe we scare some kids. Maybe there's some fog involved. Maybe some animatronics. I don't know. You have to be the judge yourself out there, listeners. Maybe I'll post some photos on the old social if I'm feeling crazy. If you can handle the spookage. And a man who loves a little bit of spookage in his life, he transforms his upstate estate into the monstrous manor, I believe he calls it. None other than the Flowmaster himself, Mr. Henry Schwartz from Cboe. Mr. Flowmaster, how go things on this mischief night for you, sir?
Well, we are getting ready for Halloween in New York City. There's a big parade in Greenwich Village. I think it's going to be a little cold and rainy though, so it might not be perfect conditions. But I like a good Halloween. It's not, New York City Halloween. It's not the suburban version where you're ringing doorbells, but the kids they trick or treat the stores, which is kind of weird. But they get some pretty good loot. I believe last year there was a big line in front of the Louis Vuitton store in Soho because they were giving away some really nice little treats.
Louis Vuitton trick-or-treating. That certainly sounds interesting. Speaking of interesting, are these markets interesting? Let's find out, listeners. It is time to unleash the trading block.
It's time to break down the latest topics, trades, and trends in the world of options. It's time for the trading block.
All right, let's get down to business here. I asked, are these markets interesting? Perhaps a better term is, are they spooky? We are heading into really the heart of spooky season, listeners. And if a little bit of red on your screen gives you the heebie-jeebies, maybe perhaps like Uncle Mike, perhaps you should turn away from today's show because we got a little blood red on the screen. Maybe not as much as we had earlier, even though it looks like we're starting to trend back down again. So maybe that will change as the show progresses. As we're coming into the start of the show, we are still mixed. The Dow is actually up about 0.25%. The S&P kind of rebounding off its lows a little bit, and then still coming back down. It was down about 0.25% heading right into the show. Has trended a little bit lower now, down about 0.45, almost 0.5% again, and was looking a little bit lower even this morning out here. On the back of some tech earnings, apparently all the good news, the optimism that we had around the Chinese trade deal that everyone was rallying the market on about a week ago. Apparently that means nothing now that we got a little bit more concrete data on there, but the tech numbers are definitely weighing on the market. And NASDAQ off nearly 1% right now after rallying hard nearly 1% yesterday. So even though there is red on the screen, we're still kind of back to where we were just a couple of sessions ago out there. Speaking of back to where we were, VIX cash back to about a 16.5. That puts it up 0.5 point from where it was on the Monday show. It was actually a little bit higher, right around 16.75. Not that long before the show started, kind of drifting back down to 16.5. We'll see if this next leg down gets a little bit of teeth. We might start drifting back up again. We shall see. We'll keep an eye on all of that as we go around the horn. Let's go out to the mischievous one himself, a.k.a. Uncle Mike. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, what is catching your eye in a little bit of, at least right now, modestly spooky, dare I say it, mildly blood red market, sir?
Hey, we're down 0.5%. I'm scared, man.
Head for the hills. Crazy. Abandon all hope, ye who enter here.
Oh, I mean, this is just craziness. I don't know what we should do. So yesterday, if we had a show, I would have got to say my trademark thing. We did get all-time highs yesterday. So I guess if spookiness is being 1% off of the all-time highs we made yesterday, then I got to say it really doesn't scare me that much. So we'll have to do better than that. We'll have to go to some pumpkin farm haunted houses or something to find some more fear. So I think that we've had some type of fear kind of sort of a few weeks ago, and we're looking a lot more optimistic right now within this market. Market's down 36 points on the day. Interesting, the VIX is actually down a little bit on the day, down 2% on the day. So we're not getting any love in the VIX. Fed announced yesterday that they are cutting by 0.25%. So they did that. And bonds are really not much movement today because I don't think that was much of a surprise to anyone that the Fed was doing that. So there was no surprise. The spookiest thing that I'm seeing on my screen right now is we got old Mr. Softy Microsoft down almost 3% on the day. I didn't think they were allowed to go down, but they are down on the day. So that's probably a good reason as to like you were saying, Mark, in terms of some tech earnings, that is a reason as to why we are down on the day-to-day. Just looking at some overall sectors, consumer discretionaries, XLY down 1.3% on the day. XLK, technology sector, down 0.8% on the day. Everything else is either somewhat, well, I shouldn't say that. Technically, the materials are down 0.8% on the day, but everything else is either somewhat higher or more flat. So we're not getting a lot. This isn't a broad-based sell-off by any means, and that's evidenced by the financials. For example, JP Morgan, that is up 1.8% on the day. So I think, like you said, there's some tech earnings that were not the greatest. I guess the other spooky thing, it's really not on many of my portfolios, that we do have some collars on it, but Meta, aka Facebook, is down 10% on the day. So we do have that, but there's also Google up 4% on the day. Someone never told Google that they aren't allowed to go up that quickly, but they continue to go up quite a bit. So it's a very mixed bag today in terms of what is up and what is down. So we don't have anything broad-based, and all in all, factoring everything into the equation, we're down 0.5% on the day. Silver is back up for 2% on the day, but that's kind of boring for silver these days. Gold's up, but that's only up 1%. Big deal. That doesn't even count anymore. If you're not making new all-time highs, I don't even know why I'm wasting your time talking about it. So that is what I'm seeing today.
Yeah, you're right. It is a weird mixed bag on the earnings front in terms of how the street interprets these things, but we'll probably get to that in a little bit when we break down the top 10 most actives. But before we get there, we go out to the hallowed halls of Mischief Manor, where the Flowmaster regales us with his week. First off, I neglected to mention at the top of the show, yesterday was indeed Fed Day, as Uncle Mike alluded to. So we got the expected quarter point cut. Maybe the Fed throwing a little bit of cold water on the notion that we're going to see another cut this year, which is also being factored into this little bit of red we're seeing on the screen out there today. So, Mr. Flowmaster, if you have thoughts on the Fed action and the Fed's thoughts, have at it. And then B, what else is catching your eye out there today and indeed since our last show, sir?
Sure. I mean, it has been a kind of an interesting week. And, the Fed, everybody kind of was expecting, what we got. And, as Mike said, we were up. It was to the moon, kind of into the announcement. And then when Powell spoke and kind of said, don't count on the next one necessarily, everybody got a little freaked out. We had a decent little pullback. I think that's probably why VIX is actually kind of down a bit today, even though the market's down a bit, because we actually, in the end, I think yesterday we finished like within 20 cents of flat on the day. So it was a little bit kind of volatile intraday. And, so right now, VIX 16.5. It has become, this market is a little bit conflicted, I think. We are near all-time highs, but, these earnings, some of the tech earnings are a little rough, right? Meta really getting hurt today. And, we continue to see a lot of kind of headlines and angst about this AI bubble, if it is a bubble, kind of, and the real extreme concentration that, that we're seeing in these, these Mag 7 and Mag 10 names. I believe current levels, probably around 37% of the S&P 500 market cap is in the top 7 names. So most people agree that's not the healthiest kind of market dynamic. And I think that's why we're getting a little bit of, kind of sideways and even potentially a little bit of fear out there. But in the end, every single dip for the last few years has turned into a very good buying opportunity. I think people really are somewhat conditioned for that. We still have the government shutdown, so we're kind of operating in a bit of a weird data vacuum, at least for the government numbers. We're still getting, ADP employment and some of these kind of economic indicators from other places. So, it's we continue to see, kind of high dispersion, right? We see, even today, Google's up, Meta's down, Apple's up. So it's just kind of a choppy market. Generally good for indexes when basically the winners and losers kind of cancel each other out. But we're finishing finishing up October. Average daily volume in October is well over 70 million contracts. So we got one more day, but that'll be a record for sure. And 2 more months in the year.
It was a good point I think you made about yesterday's, I think, lack of net movement at the end of the day. It was kind of wild. I can't remember the last time, Mr. Flowmaster. Maybe you can. You are living in the flow day today. I can't remember the last time we had to go to triple decimal points to calculate the percent move of the S&P. I think it was 0.004% net move on the day, sir, which is, again, kind of wild. Can you remember the last time we saw the S&P do that little net on the day, sir?
Well, not on a Fed day. I mean, there have been a couple days I remember clearly that where the SPX was unchanged, and that's always just kind of really, really surprising. But that on a Fed day where you kind of know that there's going to be new information and recalibration of people's exposure, and then to really end up exactly where you started, I think is pretty interesting. So. Just kind of shows you there's a lot of kind of two-way opinion and capital flow going on right now.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, there was an obvious catalyst in the Fed day. That definitely has to be the least movement we've ever seen net on a Fed day. I mean, I can't imagine any other Fed day having done so little out there. I harken back to the old Greenspan days when, the briefcase measurements were in vogue and Fed decision imminent. We weren't ending the day plus or minus 0.004% in the S&P on days like that. So, yeah, just absolutely wild stuff we have out here in this market. Is that translating into some wild paper? Are we in store for some wild times on this mischief night? Are you feeling a little mischievous? Let's see how the markets are feeling. VIX is certainly feeling its oats out here today, listeners. A little bit of red on the screen, a little bit of green on the vol screen. Clearly good for business out there today, as well as one sizable trade. VIX putting up 667,000 contracts already. That's against an ADV of 890,000, so almost already there. That's more paper than we saw VIX do in the entire day, many days over the last couple of weeks already by not even halfway through the show. So a little bit of a wild start to the day out there. If you're wondering what is driving that paper, what is the hot option in VIX land today, it's 144,000 of the DEES 33s. We've been seeing DEES of all shapes and sizes going up over the last week and a half or so. We talked about downside puts, 16 and 18 puts, talked about 25 calls recently. And of course, that was just on the Monday show, I believe. And now we got even more upside DEES 33s, and these are indeed opening. 144,000 of these bad boys for an average price of around 89 cents. So once again, when it comes to size DEES, or just size VIX prints in general, we put it out to you folks to be the ultimate arbiters. Are you down for that? So we said, hey, quite simply, 89 cents, DEES 33s. Are you a buyer or sold to you? Or we got a little bit more nuance for you this week. We know some people don't want to sell them naked, so we said you could buy them as part of a spread or sell them as part of a spread. We'll be risk mitigated for you. Why not? And right now, 50%, this just went live a few minutes ago, so we'll give it some time to percolate. But right now in the early offing, 50% of you are saying sold to you. You want nothing to do with the DEES 33s. Naked, straight up selling them. 25% each roughly say you want to buy them straight up or buy them as part of a spread. So that's what makes a market. 50-50 buy them and sold to you. So that's almost exactly how our last poll shook out as well. The DEES 18s, I believe, for, what was it, around $1.25, somewhere in that ballpark. 50-50 on that one as well. So DEES upside, a bit of a crapshoot right now because of all the kerfuffle around the Fed. DEES, not normally a time when you want to load up on a lot of vol seasonally, but there is a potential for a little bit more vol with some of the dust up on who's going to be the next Fed chairman going on in December. We've been talking about it on Vol Views. Check out that show if you are intrigued. Out to SPY land we go. Is SPY looking hot? Is SPY looking spicy right now, listeners? The answer is affirmative. 5.05 million contracts already on the tape. So a pretty hot day out there in SPY land. The ADV a little bit shy of 10 million, 9.6 million. So those numbers getting lofty in SPY land and indeed in VIX land. The S saying, hold my beer, kid, I want to play two. Nearly 2.5 million contracts on the tape right now. That's against an ADV of 4.4 million. Now, we have seen spicy starts to the day a lot over the last week or two. And then the second half of the session, things kind of peter out and we end up not even hitting the ADV. So we'll see if the second half can live up to the first half here in terms of volume. We'll find out later today on the Hot Options Report. Stay tuned for that. Another reason why you should be subscribed to the full network if you're not. Small caps also hot out of the gate today. 863,000 contracts on the tape. So living up to that surprisingly inflated ADV, which is right around 1.7 million. You know, in the past, small caps have had a hard time even maintaining 1 million contracts a day. That was pretty heavy volume for them. Usually they're hanging out around 800,000 contracts a day. So they are fully 1 million contracts a day above that right now, which is absolutely wild paper for small caps. And then not to be outdone, the Qs saying, what about me? Nearly 3 million contracts already on the tape, 2.9 million for the Qs. The ADV, 4.85 million. Again, we'll come back at the end of the day and run down all these numbers again, but out to single names we go. Is it a banger out here on the single name option front? You know what? The answer is a resounding yes. And if it wasn't, I mean, we're in the teeth of earnings season right now. When else are you going to get hot single name options action? Earnings season, it's kind of the name of the game. One of the reasons why it would be a shame amongst many. One of the many reasons why it would be a shame if they moved earnings season to only twice per year. You wouldn't get fun like this. 468,000 contracts is what it cost you to break into the top 10 today. Listen, that gets us to our old pal, Uncle Mike's favorite holding of all time, I do believe. Palantir, 197 3/4, off a little over $1 today, or not even 0.5%. So kind of a wild topsy-turvy day in Palantir. It's selling off, it's rallying, as you expect it to do. A lot of intraday peak to trough movement, though. If you're range trading this one today, you could be doing all right out here. Number 10, Palantir, 468 on the tape. Number 9, AMD, right around 260. Actually, 259.5, just ticked. So off about 4 3/4 or almost 2% on the day. Again, it's kind of a weird day on the big tech front. We'll get to all that and some of the bigger names reporting in a little bit, like number 9, good old Goog, a.k.a. Alphabet Class C. You know when Goog and Goog L are on the tape, that means it's Google earnings day. There's no other time, really, that those two are usually on the docket together. We don't talk Class C very often. Class C hanging out 286.13, up about $11 or about exactly 4%. So a good day for the Goog, 499,000 contracts for them. We'll come back for their counterpart in a second. Number 7, the Amazonians. Popping off after the bell today, but they're kind of wearing it. Number 6, Amazon, 627 on the tape, 225.10, off about a little over $5, a little over 2%. So they're kind of coming for the Amazonians right now, pre-earnings. Again, they've had some negative headlines of late, which haven't really seemed to affect them. They rallied on the day when they took out half of the internet a week ago. So we'll see if it's just general tech wreck that's kind of dragging them down today, or maybe a little bit of spookage heading into their earnings as well. Either way, number 7, the Amazonian, 627. Number 6, Uncle Mike's other beloved holding, the Fruit Company. This one continuing to put up numbers out here, 271.5, up $1 3/4. They are almost 100 handles above now where they did their stock buyback. It was 172 was around the low, so 271, almost 272. They're almost exactly 100 handles right around that level. It was just like such a stunning turnaround. Within a week, it was over $200 and it never really looked back. So again, seems to have worked, that little bit of stock support out there. They're up 100 handles on their purchase out there. Number 6, Apple. Can they keep it going? They're popping off after the bell tonight. 679 on the tape for them. As we go to number 5, another Uncle Mike core holding. This is good old Softy. As he said, I didn't get the memo that it was allowed to sell off. 526.95, off a little over $14, or about 2.6%. They came for this one in the after hours. We talked about it a little bit on the Hot Options Report yesterday after the bell. Does seem, I mean, maybe this is a good sign. We've been kind of talking about it for a while. In fact, that's our subject of our question of the week. Is this market whistling past the graveyard on the whims of AI? Well, it does seem like the street is starting to question a little bit. You can't just spend any sum of money on AI and not have the street push back on it a little bit. And recently, that hasn't been the case. We just saw NVIDIA top 5 trillion valuation off of the fact that it is spending more money. They just spend money and drive their stock up, and that's kind of been the play for a little while in the AI space. And all these other firms like Microsoft and others are spending a boatload of money. Of course, Microsoft also has a piece of the forthcoming OpenAI IPO, whenever that happens. I think they're talking about 2027. They're talking about a $1 trillion valuation for that. So still a lot of wild fluff out there, but maybe some of that coming back for Microsoft a little bit. It's still well north of $500, listeners. And year to date, it is up about 26%. So still has a lot to give back if it wants to give back. But number 5, the Softy, 685 on the tape. Number 4, Google, which is kind of interesting. It's the other side of this. Like, Google's been spending like a fiend on AI as well, but it seems like the street doesn't mind it here. 285.40, up nearly $11 or nearly 4%. So Alphabet getting kind of rewarded for that. I mean, they are making some money on their stuff. So they, unlike maybe some of these others where they're just kind of throwing money into the AI cauldron in the hopes that it materializes, then perhaps it's working out better for Google. It's working out better in the stock right now. 772 on the tape for number 4. Number 3, yes, all the way down at number 3, it's Tesla, giving up some of the ghosts today. 444 3/4, off 16 3/4, or 3.6% out there today for Tesla. 1.5 million contracts on the tape for them. So pretty much a standard day for Tesla. And then number 2, yes, what's kicking Tesla to the curb today? It's our old pal Meta Platforms. They are coming for this one today. 674 1/4, off 73 3/4, or nearly 10%. I mean, some of the numbers they're throwing around out here, $200+ billion of market cap erased in a few seconds out here. These are kind of wild. Again, this is another name that if it wanted to sell off, has a long way to go. It was just $100 not that long ago, listeners. So it's still north of 600 by a substantial margin. So it could sell off another couple of hundred handles and still be an extremely lofty name out here, listeners. So interesting stuff out here. Apparently, Meta's AI spend is too much for the street. They're just, you're throwing too much, and you're hearing these stories about, paying generational wealth numbers to lure AI developers to their platform and everything else. So maybe some of that spend catching up to them. Either way, the street not liking it. More sellers than buyers out there today. For number 2, Meta, 1.76 million. And then the big dog, it's NVIDIA, looking a little bit smaller today after setting new all-time highs just in the last few sessions with the endless amount of spend that it's doing and buying a piece of Nokia out there, just driving that. Again, if you can get away with that, you should keep printing money out there. Spend money and it drives your stock up. It's a great do it all day. You're making money on your spend, so have at it. Today, giving some of that back to the market gods, 202.89 off 415, or exactly 2%. So about almost exactly $10 below their all-time high out here, and just kissing $5 trillion on the market cap front. Again, it wasn't that long ago we passed the first $1 trillion company, and now we have IPOs talking about going out at $1 trillion valuation, and we have NVIDIA hitting 5T. So kind of wild times on the valuation front, which again is kind of getting back to our question of the week. We'll get there again in a little bit. But first, it is a hot time on the earnings front. Luckily for you folks, we got you covered. TheOptionsInsider.com is the place to go. Click on the Options News and Articles tab to get your latest and greatest earnings move results, and earnings season reports. I can't even begin to summarize all the names that are popping off this week. Just a representative sampling. Let's see. Monday, if you're hot on the waste side, waste management. Tuesday, we had SoFi. Talked about them earlier this week. We had Visa, EA. They're a controversial one now with that takeover. Not a lot of folks loving that. Cheesecake Factory. Wednesday, we got Boeing, formerly our friends across the street. I still do go over to their cafeteria every now and then. Not really the Boeing cafeteria anymore, but still some good stuff over there. One of the secret gems here in Chi-Town. And then Caterpillar. And we had Meta, of course, yesterday after the bell. Softy and Alphabet. Chipotle we haven't talked about. Looks like Chipotle taking a bit of a beating out there today as well. Good old S-Bucks. They've kind of had a rough go when your core component is up nearly 50% on the year, 35, 40%, somewhere in that ballpark. It's kind of rough to make money, and that's kind of what they're grappling with. And then today, of course, we have Roblox. They kind of crushed it before the bell out here today as well. So not a name we talk about a lot. Amazon after the bell. Apple after the bell. Don't forget about Coinbase. Roku, a former top 10er all the time a few years ago. I haven't talked about them in ages. And then tomorrow we've got, if you want a taste of energy, we got Exxon and Chevron. And then some company I never heard of called Cboe. I'm not sure what that acronym stands for. As of coming into earlier this week, I don't have the latest report for today, listeners. So, of course, we can sink our teeth into that on another show. But right now, the season coming into earlier this week was hanging out, like we said, right around 117%. So looking pretty juicy out there, listeners. Again, our long-term average is down a little bit, down to 102%. Still more than what we're pricing in straddle-wise, so it still makes sense to buy the vol. But this season, once again, kicking off and looking like it's planning to be a banger out here. Let's look really quickly for some of the names that are popping off after the bell. Let's go to the Amazonians. They were pricing in $13.32 the last time we talked about this, and last time we ran this report a couple days ago. And in the past, they've moved $13.43. So Amazon was pricing pretty much in line with their past expectations, which is kind of interesting. Buying vol has been the name of the game of late. Coinbase popping off after the bell today. We haven't talked Coinbase in a while. Coin 337.87, giving off nearly $11 or over 3% today. They were a little bit higher, 354 when we ran this last report. They were pricing in $28.33. In the past, they've moved $26.30, so pretty much exactly $2 more sprinkled on top. Is that enough? Or is that too much? I guess we'll find out. Oh, the Monster popping off today after the bell as well, a.k.a. MicroStrategy, a.k.a. Strategy, which is a far more boring name. This Monster was pricing in $13.84. In the past, they've moved $15.85, so a $2.01 haircut off the top there, listeners. Less vol in the Monster? Is that the way you would go, or are you buying all the vol and strategy that you can? It's selling off nearly $11 today, or nearly 4%. Trading 264.73 was a wee bit higher when we ran this report earlier this week. Let's go out to a few more. Let's go out to Roku. Why not? 96.25. Haven't talked to Roku in forever. That's where they were when we ran this report. They're hanging out. 100.25. They rallied $4, so it's been a good couple of sessions for Roku. They were pricing in $11.20. In the past, they've moved $13.75. So another $2.50 roughly discount here, which is, again, kind of interesting. Have people not been paying attention to the numbers we give out to the world absolutely for free because we like you? Fruit Company after the bell, they were in the mid 260s when we ran this. Obviously, they're north of 270 right now. But the straddle was around $9.68, which is actually looking a little bit juicy. In the past, they've moved $7.76. So right around almost $2 worth of extra juice out there. Well, again, the stock's been moving lately, so kind of hard to argue with more vol. If past is Prolog, that hasn't been the best choice all the time in Apple, but we are seeing more vol as the name of the game these days. So perhaps Apple will also live up to that reputation out here. We already talked about Alphabet, Google, and all that other fun. You can see all the numbers for those names that are popping off today as well. Let's do one more. Let's do something Henry might be familiar with. Some name called Cboe. I'm not familiar with them. They are popping off Friday before the bell. They were a little bit shy at 240 on this report. Let's see where Cboe is hanging out right now. 236.65. So about a couple of bucks different from this report, but looking pretty similar. They're priced in a little bit more juice as well. 6.89 versus 6.25. So interesting. A little over 60 cents. More juice out there in Cboe land. Is that merited? I guess I'll leave that up to you folks, as it's time for us to leave it up to the Flow Master. It is time for the Odd Block.
It's time to break down the most interesting, unusual, and downright questionable options activity that's been identified by theoptionsinsider.com. It's time for the Odd Block.
All right, everybody, let's get weird. Let's get wild. Let's unleash the Flow Master and see what he's got on the docket on this eve of All Hallows Eve, a.k.a. Mischief Night. Let's see what kind of mischief we can get up to here in the Odd Block today. Listen, let's kick it off. I do believe this is a newcomer. At the very least, I can't recall talking about it anytime recently. This is Clearwater Analytics Holdings, Inc., ticker symbol CWAN, C-W-A, and I definitely would remember that ticker, listener. So the Flow Master bringing us a new name, $18.48, up about 40 cents or a little over 2% today. So a decent day for Clearwater. I guess their analytics are looking pretty good. On the year, though, those analytics are looking like a dumpster fire. The stock's off $8.50 or nearly 32% on the year. So wild stuff out here. It was $26, almost $27 a year ago. Rallied hard in the first week of November. Must have had earnings up to their high for the year of north of $35, 35 and 3/4. So if you look at it from that perspective, from peak to trough, they've sold off even more. And then the rest of the year, it's been almost straight down. They had a brief respite right around Valentine's Day, like a lot of names did. They rallied back up to about $30.50 and then just continued their straight down trajectory. I guess if you want a little bit of glass half full, the stock got to about $17.50 in the beginning of October, and it rallied up to 19.25 just earlier this week before giving up the ghost yet again. So this one has had a hard time maintaining any sort of bid this year. Let's see what the Flowmaster has uncovered. Is it more deeply cynical puts? Does someone feel like it's time for the turnaround? Mr. Flowmaster, what you got for us in our new favorite, C1?
Well, yeah, this is one I'd never heard of the ticker before, but I think it's a small cap or mid cap name. Couple of big chunks of call buying, which makes me think somebody thinks that it is due for a recovery. The first chunk of this, so two chunks. One was at 10.18 this morning when the stock was around 18, really kind of in the 18.25 to 18.30 range, and somebody came buying Nove 20 calls. They started paying 65 cents in a handful of sweeps. They paid a little bit up to 70 for a few of those. Total of about 5,000. Now this is opening because it exceeds the open interest. It's well above the average daily volume, and this name only averages 1,100 calls a day. So we're currently basically 9 times the average volume, and it's 15 times the average daily call volume. The second chunk was really just about 40 minutes later when 5,000 of these Nove 20 calls were swept basically from 75 to about 80 cents. The average was 77 cents, and that was another 5,000. So on the day, we're actually looking at 11,700. My guess is it's probably 10,000 for the original order, and then you've got some people piling on. Volatility is higher. In fact, in the November term, it's up like 14 points. So I don't know much about the name. This was enough for me to kind of say maybe a little long stock position is worth getting into. Maybe I'll see if the calls get juiced up anymore. I might sell a little bit of premium that way and kind of turn it into a buy right, which most of our listeners know is economically the same as being short a put. So it does seem to be a bullish position. Stocks up about 2% today. I don't know if they're looking for some sort of a catalyst. I mean, they're November, so that is the first term on this. It doesn't have weekly options or anything. So just a kind of a distinctive outright call buyer with decent size. I don't think we've seen anything like it in the name. Let me just look. Really nothing, no volume spike like what we're seeing today unless you go all the way back to August. So to me, this is probably certainly worth putting on the radar. And as I said, I've got a little bit of a stock position now.
Lowmaster loading up, trying to decide whether to buy right or not. We've all been there. I might be there now on some of my positions. We shall see as we keep on rolling out to a name we haven't talked about in a little while. I was just doing a little bit of digging while the Flowmaster was talking to see when was the last time we talked about this name. It's Luminar Technologies, Inc., listeners. You might remember the ticker better. Laser, L-A-Z-R. They do LiDAR technology for self-driving cars, all that fun. Trading $2.17, up a couple of cents today, so not a crazy day for them. On the year, though, it's another one. This chart looks almost identical to the last one, and that they had a little bit of fun in the first few weeks of the year. They went from about $12 all the way up to their high for the year. It looks like $18.60 in November of last year, I guess on renewed optimism for everything self-driving and autonomous cars and electric cars was hot. Of course, Musk was part of the administration back then, so probably a lot of that leading to this frenzy, and the stock got up to $18.60 it has since fallen completely out of bed, listeners. And a lot of that fall came very fast. That was in November 11th, it got up that high. By December 23rd, basically around Christmas time, it sold off to $5. So it was already down on the year. Started the year $13. And then it's had a few fits and starts along the way. January got up to $8, March up to $6.25, but the rest of the year has been straight down. We are pretty close to its 52-week low. Looks like it set that last week of $1.58. It has rallied since then. So if you want the glass half full, over the last week, it's up 44 cents or 25%. But outside of that, this chart is a complete dumpster fire, off 83% on the year. And of course, if you go to that peak around $19, it's off even more than that. So a rough year out here for Luminar. By the way, if you're wondering when's the last time we talked about it, it was back on our Options Oddities show, so on the pro side, back on July 1st of 2022. It was talking about puts back then, so maybe the fix has been in for a while on this name. It was a put roll. The stock was 6.25, and someone looks like they were rolling the 7 puts down to the 6 puts in July. Doing it for size, 25,000 by 60,000 times. So size put roll, usually we see that much on the second leg, a little bit of a house money roll. I haven't had a chance to go look to see if these paid off, but we were talking puts 3 years ago, and here we are still talking about downside here in this stock. So it seems like we've been to this well a few times here, Mr. Flowmaster. What caught your eye out here in laser this time?
Well, it is some funky call activity, but I will tell you, I was in San Francisco last weekend, and I rode in a Waymo taxi a couple times, and this is the driverless future, and it was amazing. So I am a fan, and I don't know what the problems are with in this company's business operations, but obviously, as you said, the stock is very, very beaten up.
So it was, let me just interrupt you. It was a driverless car. How many people were in the car to facilitate this driverless car, sir?
There were. You mean like a monitor?
Yeah, usually there's monitors that are required, right?
Nope. It was 100% empty.
100%?
They are driving all over San Francisco all by themselves. It was amazing.
How many diapers did you have on while you were driving, sir?
I sat in the front seat. I was not afraid. But what we see here, so I actually think somebody might be kind of looking at a potential little squeeze, at least hopes of some sort of a stock squeeze, because it looks like there's nothing available to borrow, at least at one source that we keep an eye on. In fact, the last time you could short it, the rate to do so was well over 100% annualized. So that is tells you that basically that many people have already shorted it. There's nothing available to borrow, or if there is anything, it's very, very expensive. And what we see right now is 24,000 of the October 31st, so these expire tomorrow. The 2.5 calls have traded today. It looks like mostly buyers. They're in the 6 and 7 cent range. Stock was 220, 219. So basically, stock right here. The stock was. They actually looks to me like they might have started buying them when the stock was a bit lower, 212 or so. But most of them they seem to pick up here. They only have a day for these, and the stock would need to be up another 35 cents just for them to kind of break even on this. But as we know, we've seen that the short names and meme names certainly do have the potential to explode higher, and that's what I think they're looking at in this. Not a lot of action in anything longer dated, so. It's not a ton of money, but kind of 24,000 7-cent options. Still, what are we looking at? About $200,000, $168,000 in premium that will expire tomorrow. Whether it's in the money if stock manages to pop higher, or maybe it won't pan out. But this one's definitely worth. Definitely counts as an odd block. Just one-day trades are always really interesting. If it does start to get a lot of eyeballs, or if it really starts to head towards that level, we kind of know at that point. If it's in the afternoon and it's a thin name, and $2 stocks are not the easiest things to trade. We could see some fireworks in laser.
A little bit of a Viceroy special. 7-cent calls with 1 day to go on a $2 stock. He would love that one. He would be all over that one. Yes, the Viceroy special still abound here. Western Union, not quite to that level, but getting on the cheaper side of the spectrum, selling off a little bit again today, off about 20 cents or about 2%. Trading 935, ticker symbol WU, listeners. Haven't talked about good old Woo in a while, and maybe because this stock has also had a little bit of a rough year. Not quite as rough as the other two we talked about. They're only off 13.5% for the year, about $1.50. But again, this is another one that's been mostly trending lower with a brief surge to nearly $12 in March and then right back down again. On the plus side, they did get down to, looks like they're low for the year, just in late September, early October. So this month, they've had a nice little run. They're up about $1.30 or 17%. So they've cut their losses for the year pretty much in half. So I guess that's your glass half full take. And Mr. Flowmaster, is somebody rolling the bones on a little bit more upside, or what are they up to here in WU?
Yeah, this is an interesting one, and it's not just today. So today you got call volume around 16,000 contracts, which is about double normal, and put volume only at under 2,200 contracts. So a pretty, almost an 8-to-1 ratio of calls to puts. That's not actually so out of range for this stock. It kind of usually trades about 12,000 calls and 1,800 puts. So it's heavy, but it's not nuts. What's interesting though is, so today it's basically February 10 calls and 9 calls kind of are dominating the flow. Not a ton of it, but there is kind of persistent heavy flow as far back as last week. Now it had earnings on the night of the 23rd or maybe the morning of the 24th. The stock actually was up a good chunk on results. So it went from 814 to close at 897 after earnings. And it's just kind of chopped around a little bit, but that call volume has continued high. In fact, on the 28th, we saw 56,000 calls, and yesterday 112,000 calls traded. So this seems to be kind of holding on, and the volatility is continuing to climb as well. So, I know Western Union is usually used as an example of something that kind of, crypto could replace with, effectively, near zero fees for international transfers, which is, part of their business. I think that's part of why the stock's gotten so beaten up. But I'm not sure if there's a catalyst or somebody's looking for something. But to see kind of persistent heavy call volume, the stock's really almost dead center for its 52-week range. So, but it did today's flow and really the flow over the last, ever since earnings, just kind of seems to be kind of building a long call position.
And the show is building right on into the final segment. It is time to go around the block.
It's time to tell you what we'll be watching on our trading screens until the next episode. It's time for Around the Block.
All right, everybody, welcome to Around the Block, the portion of the show where we tell you what we're keeping an eye on here for the rest of this week until our next episode and this show on Monday. And coming into the end of the show, let's see, how are we looking out here? Looking a little bit dissimilar from where we were at the start of the show. The S&P is only off a little over 1/3% now. Dow's up about 1/3%. And the NASDAQ still off similar percent, about 0.9%. And VIX cash hanging out a little bit shy of 16.5, about 16.45 or so. So for the most part, pretty similar to where we were at the start of the show. Let's do a quick update here on some of our polls and questions of the week as well. We asked you at the start of the show, these DEES 33s for about 90 cents. Are you a buyer or sold to you? 50% of you want to buy them right now. 37.5% of you say sold to you. And 12.5% say you want to buy them as part of the spread. So buyers still taking it, but naked sellers not that far behind. Your folks are saying you want nothing to do with upside. Some of you at least want nothing to do with upside in December. Going out to our actual question of the week. This one is kind of contentious. I'm sure Uncle Mike has some thoughts on this as well. Which is quite simply, we were talking about this earlier this week, and this number kind of came up, and I think it was on our Pro Q&A, and it kind of resonated for a fun question of the week, which is quite simply, let's go old school. Let's talk about PEs again. The PE ratio of the S&P 500, a long-term average is somewhere around 15, 16, depending on how you look at it. And when usually it gets north of 20, people start saying, oh, things are getting lofty. Blew through 30 not that long ago. And depending on how you measure it, could be north of 31 right now. So it's looking pretty juicy from a PE perspective. Last 2 times we saw PE at this level, or indeed substantially above, was in the 2 dubious times for the market, the great financial crisis and the dot-com bubble. So we thought we'd put it to you folks. Does this give you pause? Or are you saying, who cares about PE anymore? Or maybe AI's changing the game anyway. The old school PE is no longer relevant. Or maybe you're just whistling past the graveyard. Mr. Uncle Mike, as our resident bull, I'd like your thoughts on this. What are your thoughts on these, shall we say, relative lofty levels of valuation in the market right now, at least by this one historical measure? And then B, which way do you think our audience is going? And then C, what are you keeping an eye on for the rest of the week until the Monday show, besides your trick-or-treating and mischief, sir?
For sure. I think the audience thinks we're whistling past the graveyard. I think it is cause for concern, but we got a VIX in the teens. Buy some put options if you're concerned. So that's kind of my thought on it.
And what are you keeping an eye on till the Monday show, aside from all your skullduggery in St. Charles tomorrow night, and also a football game you got to coach?
For sure. We got A&A today. So the Apple and the Amazon earnings, checking those out, seeing what we got going on there. I think that'll give us somewhat of an indication, not necessarily the earnings themselves, but how the stocks react to the earnings as to where we might be going over the course of the next few days, and whether we need to be scared tomorrow or not.
And is St. Charles North, are they scared of their opponents, sir? Or are you up to the challenge?
We feel we're up to the challenge, but like an old coach of mine used to say, never fear your opponent, but always respect your opponent.
You ain't afraid of no ghost out there in St. Charles North as we head on over to the land of Mischief Manor. Mr. Flowmaster, what are your thoughts on these, shall we say, lofty levels of PE out there in the market? Which way are you going in our poll? More importantly, which way do you think our audience is going? And then B, what are you keeping an eye on until your next appearance next week, sir?
Well, I think it's pretty clear that, by most traditional measures, the valuations are stretched. I think there's a pretty good argument to make that, that we are in a major kind of paradigm shift with AI. There's obviously some massive investments happening. Some of these, aren't going to work out, but at the same time, I do think we're seeing a real shift here. So, I think there are some reasons to kind of justify the valuation levels we're at. And, the other thing is, we usually, when everybody starts pointing to like, oh, we're definitely going to have a crash, well, it doesn't happen. That's not how it works. So, I do have some concerns. A good friend of mine who's been trading for decades basically said that he has shifted from buying puts when he's nervous to buying MREs and shotgun shells. So he's kind of looking at it from a different angle. But with volatility low, I love some of these put spreads out there that you can pick up for relatively low levels. I mean, the skew is really kind of mid-level on most symbols, and especially in SPX. So really, it doesn't seem like we're at one extreme or another in terms of pricing with VIX here and skew kind of at mid. So, we have more earnings to come, right? We got Apple and Amazon today, right after the close, and as you said, my company on Friday morning. So there's just a lot happening, and I think our listeners probably. I don't think they're going to say we're whistling past the graveyard, because you know what, that really has not worked as far as a strategy in the last couple of years at least.
I like that. Bullets, the ultimate hedge, sir.
There you go.
That could be the tagline for a paper or indeed a show. Bullets, the ultimate hedge. Are you loading up on your bullets out there? I don't know. I disagree, Mr. Flowmaster. I think whistling past the graveyard, which to me implies you're nervous, but you're still kind of doing it, right? That's worked out all right the last few years. The stock market's gone up. You might have been nervous about it, but it's gone up. If you whistled past and didn't do anything, that's a different story. But in my interpretation, I think that's working out all right. Right now, though, our audience thinks this market is absolutely effing insane. Yes, this is crazy, taking it 44.1%. 23.5% reject that. They say no. Who cares about PE anymore? That's old school. That's old hat for them. 17.6% agree, but have a different tack. They say no because AI is changing the game, baby. Productivity increases, all the things you've heard about out there, all the promises of AI. If those come true, maybe the old school metrics of 15 to 20, maybe that's old school. And then 14.7% have been doing the old whistling past the graveyard trade out there, which again, I think that's worked out pretty well. If you've been doing it, you've been nervous. As our chat says, the graveyard's getting pretty full of tombstones right now. It's kind of hard to whistle past all of them. You're right. There are some potential obstacles to this bull, but again, if you've been whistling past all of them for the last few years, you've done all right. Maybe you didn't sleep that well at night, but your portfolio is thanking you for it. That music means we've come to the end of another sojourn through the world of OB. If you want more in your lives, stay tuned. I'll be back in a little bit with our good buddy, Miss Carly Garner. She's going to be on TWIFO, so we're probably going to talk energy and nat gas. Probably some gold going to sneak in there as well. Maybe some equities. You never know. We got to tune into the show each week to find out. But before we go, let's go around the horn. Mr. Flowmaster, we'll start with you, sir. Where should folks go if they want to check out all of your Cboe goodies? And also give the folks your address if they want to come trick-or-treat at Mischief Manor tomorrow night in person, sir.
They can just look for me on the streets of Soho in New York on Friday.
You're gonna be going to that Louis Vuitton store, I think.
That's it. I'll be in the line. You can just head over to Cboe.com/RMA. That's where we have our data and platforms. And actually, next week, I believe we have our VIX decomposition webpage launching, which is really pretty neat. It shows you within the change in the VIX index itself, how much is coming from out-of-the-money calls versus out-of-the-money puts versus the tails versus the at-the-money versus kind of a sliding skew or horizontal shift, vertical shift kind of concept. So it's pretty nifty, and it'll be really interesting, right? Because you'll be able to take days like today where, VIX is actually lower and double check and say, well, is everything lower in terms of the inputs to the VIX, or is it all coming from, maybe the downside puts or the upside calls? So I'm really, really excited for that. It was put together by my colleague on our market intelligence team, Ed Tom, and look for that.
We will look for all that. In the meantime, check them out, Cboe.com, the place to go to learn more. Maybe some big news coming out from them tomorrow. Stay tuned for them on the opening bell tomorrow as well. Should be interesting. As we go out to the land of St. Charles, always interesting. He's gearing up for a hot mischief night and indeed a hot battle in the high school football playoffs. Mr. Uncle Mike, sir, if folks want to cheer you on or perhaps do some mischief with you or give you some coaching tips, where should they go? What should they do?
Hey, tomorrow night, St. Charles North High School, we're taking on opening round playoff games. Stop on by, 7:30 p.m. kickoff. And if you're looking for a financial advisor who is not afraid of the option product, go to stcharleswealth.com. We'd love to have a conversation with any of our listeners.
stcharleswealth.com. Keep an eye out on his YouTube as well. He's been talking about more content coming there, so we'll look forward to that. If you want to see Uncle Mike's scary, scary face for this season, then by all means, head on over to his YouTube channel. Check out our YouTube while you're there as well. We're putting up more fun stuff there all the time. Back again in a little bit for TWIFO. If you want to hear that, of course, make sure you're subscribed to the full network wherever you get this podcast. Then, of course, back after the closing bell to wrap it all up. If you like this show, you're going to love the Hot Options Report. Yet another reason why you should be tuning in to the full network. Back again tomorrow. Should be a fun one on vol views. We got a little vol to talk about and some volume on the VIX front, so should be a fun time. I'll be joined by Dr. VIX and other various and sundry guests who will join me. Got to tune in to find out. Then, of course, we wrap it up for the pro folks with Options Oddities tomorrow. Make sure you're checking out the pro. Also, your last day to get your name in the hat for the Pro Trading Crate for October. I highly encourage you to do it, if for no other reason than to really make the Rock Lobster mad that he can't win one. Then you can tweet about it on social media, tag him in it, and he'll be extra mad, which is always fun. TheOptionsInsider.com/pro is the place to go if you want to needle him. And then back again on Monday, another episode of the Option Block. Stay safe out there, and hey, have some fun trick-or-treating tomorrow night, everybody.
The Option Block is brought to you by Cboe. Cboe's suite of S&P 500 index options, SPX and mini S&P 500 XSP options, allows traders to speculate on the direction of the market, generate income, and hedge for downside protection of their portfolio of stocks. No matter what kind of trader you are, there's plenty of useful information to take the guesswork out of creating your portfolio strategy and to help you make more educated moves in the market. Visit www.cboe.com/SPX today to learn more. The views expressed herein are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views of Cboe Global Markets Incorporated or any of its subsidiaries, collectively Cboe. The information provided is for general education and information purposes only. There are important risks associated with transacting in any of the Cboe products or any of the digital assets discussed here. Before engaging in any transactions in those products or digital assets, it is important for market participants to carefully review the disclosures and disclaimers contained at www.cboe.com/US_disclaimers. These products and digital assets are complex and are suitable only for sophisticated market participants. These products involve the risk of loss, which can be substantial and, depending on the type of product, can exceed the amount of money deposited in establishing the position. Market participants should put at risk only funds they can afford to lose without affecting their lifestyle.
You're listening to the Options Insider Radio Network. For more quality options programs, visit www.theoptionsinsider.com or search for Options Insider Radio Network in your podcast provider of choice. Listeners can also access all of our programming through our mobile app, available in iTunes and on Google Play.